Hey, welcome back everyone. This is George with Aquatic Concepts. Today we're going to be talking about water changes. I know it's one of those things that all of us hate to do, and it is something that you have to do consistently in order to have a healthy tank. I want to show you my system and show you how you can simplify this very tedious task that all of us have to do to keep our aquariums looking in tip-top shape and keeping our healthy fish healthy. And when we come back, we're going to talk about that. I'm going to show you my system and my way of doing things that are going to help you look at this in a very different way. I'm going to go through the whole process with you on how I do water changes, sometimes 10 tanks an evening in just a little over an hour and a half. If you don't have an hour and a half a couple of times a week to do water changes, you probably shouldn't be in this business. But anyway, when we come back, we're going to be talking about that. I'm going to show you my system. Hang in there with me, and we'll be right back. I want to show you what a typical water change looks like if you have a good system like a Python or a Higer. There's a lot of different companies that make these systems out here, but as you can see, the hose runs directly into the tank with a valve on it, and you can actually go along and move the waste off the top of the sand. As I've said before in other videos, this is a very fine sand. I typically have to move it around a little bit to get it looking good for every water change, because of the current in the water sometimes will displace the sand. As you can see in this corner down here, it's bare, and in this corner as well. That's just the way the current in the water is here. But you can see we're about little over a quarter done. I do about 50%, and then we move on to just reversing the valve. I have an exact temperature on the faucet that goes to, and I'll show you that when we come back. As you can see with this system here, this is a spare bathroom that nobody uses. It's not even a guest bathroom. I have several bathrooms in my home, and this has something, this is always on here, and I did use a little bit of Teflon tape just to make sure that never leaks. And the temperature where I've got this right there is exactly 86 degrees based on how I've got it all set up. So when I turn this valve back again the other direction to refill my tank, that is already, I can feel it. It's exactly the same temperature, because the water that's coming into the sink here is water from my tank and also from the faucet. There's some coming out of the faucet at the same time. So you can feel down here underneath that they are exactly the same temperature. Now if they're slightly higher by a degree or two, that's not bad. You got to worry a little bit about your cories and some of those getting a little bit too much heat, but that is something that I'm going to flip that valve right now, and I'm going to start refilling the other tank. And as you can see, when we come back, you'll see how quickly that starts to fill. So it's been a couple of minutes here. I've not had to turn off any of my canister filters. This is an all-in-one, so I do unplug the pumps in the back that are pumping the main filtration, and as you can see, this water is now starting to fill back up in here. Now, I would say maybe every 2 or 3 of these water changes that I do in a week, I do 2 a week. If I feel like it on the second one, I will wipe the glass down on the inside. That's why everything is so clear And there's never any algae buildup in my tanks anyway. It just doesn't happen because of the maintenance that I do on these. There is sometimes a little bit of film that gets on the glass here, and that needs to be wiped off. It's not diatom algae that is that brown color. It's just simply, it's kind of a greenish brown color that builds up because of the windows behind me here that may filter in a little bit of light. If you do have that situation, just make sure that you don't have so much light coming in, because that will create a situation where you will get a buildup of algae that you really don't want. And then I can just move on to the next one. This literally takes probably 10 to 15 minutes per tank, and I do it twice a week, and I can go around and do all of the tanks in this gallery here. I'm letting you see how quickly this is filling. As you can see here, when we came in, this was half empty, and this is a big tank, so this is filling up very rapidly. And these tanks, I can go around and do maybe 10 tanks in an evening within an hour, a couple of times a week. If you don't have an hour to dedicate, if you have multiple tanks, then you probably shouldn't be doing this. But for those of you who only have 1 or 2 tanks, and you're looking for a simple way to do these water changes, this is absolutely the perfect situation for doing that. These systems work so well. Now, I'm not going to tell you a particular brand that I like better than another, just because I'm not out to advertise for anybody. But this one here works really, really well. I've had no problems with it. Now, I will tell you the one that I have had some problems with, and it's surprising to me, and that's the Python. The Python, for whatever reason, you see these valves right here? For whatever reason, sorry about that, not focusing correctly because my hand's there, but you can see the valve I'm talking about. Those wear out, and I don't know why. I've had to replace parts on the Python. This particular one, and as I said, I'm not going to name the one that I'm using here because I'm not trying to advertise for them, but this one here does have very little maintenance on it at all. I've not had to replace any parts that were significant, and this is basically it. I just wanted to kind of give you guys a quick snapshot of how easy it is to do water changes in your discus tanks or any tank, especially discus, where the water has to be in good shape. So I wanted to show you that so that if you want a simple system put together, I will put some links down below as to where you can get these. And when we come back, we'll talk about this and I'll kind of give you a summation of the video. I'm on to another tank here and basically doing the same thing. So I just wanted to show you how easy it is. You want to make sure that this nozzle that takes the water out and puts the water back in, you want to make sure that both ends are open and that never both ends are closed, because they will explode from pressure. So, and it doesn't matter what the quality of it is or the brand or whatever, it's just too much pressure. So make sure you follow the instructions on these things, and make sure that you're doing sorry about the reflections here. I do these at night when the fish are quiet and calm and it doesn't freak them all out. So that's just one of the things that I try to do, or early morning before the lights come on in the tank. That's another good time to do it as well. But I'm on to a second tank here. This is a 65 gallon, and this will literally take approximately 5 minutes to remove the water and probably another 5 minutes. I think it's even less than that. I think it's like 3 minutes to actually fill it back up, because it fills quicker than it removes. So that's pretty cool. And I highly recommend these systems to anybody out there who has large tanks and feels burdened by water changes. It doesn't have to be difficult. Don't make it difficult if you don't have to. These are not expensive systems. You can, I think this one here, which I think is, like I said, I like it better than the Python. And I think it was only like $69 for a 50-foot hose, which, you know, that can reach most places. It'll reach my gallery everywhere in it. So that's something that's important to me. But anyways, we will come back and we'll talk about these systems a little bit more and go from there. I hope this video was helpful in making the water change process a little bit simpler. I know it's a chore that none of us like to do. I don't even like to do it. It's one of those things that's a necessity to do, and I've just got myself into the habit of doing it. And I've also made it simple. If you look at the video and you watch it in full and you see the water change being done, you can see how simple it can actually be. A couple of tips and tricks and hacks that we discussed in the video was marking a spot on your faucet or isolating a particular faucet in your house with its own water tank, where you can get the exact temperature that you're looking for on 90% of your tanks. Now, most of the tanks in my gallery here are all running at the same temperature. If they're up and down by a degree or so, it's not going to harm the fish at all. You want to make sure that you are paying attention to that. Now, also something that we did not talk about in the video that I want to hit on because it's very important, and that is to make sure you are sanitizing your hoses in between. Now, all of the tanks in this gallery have been set up for a very long time and there's no problems with them, but that doesn't mean getting into the habit of, or getting out of the habit of keeping your equipment clean and not cross-contaminating isn't important still. I try to run at least 3 minutes of really scalding hot water through the hose before I go on to the next tank. That's why I'm able to do 10 tanks in an evening if necessary, because I have sanitized the hose in between for about 3 minutes of very, very hot water. That will kill anything. There shouldn't be anything left behind that you need to worry about passing on to the next tank that you're going to go on to. But it is important that you do that. You don't have to use Clorox or something like that, because that is just asking for a problem, and I'd rather just use the hot water. It does the job. I've never had a situation in my gallery here where I've gotten cross-contamination from using the same system on every single tank. Now, if you do have a medical tank or a tank where you are observing fish that you have just brought in and they're in quarantine, you want to have a different system for those guys, simply because taking the chance is just not worth using the same system with those tanks. It's just not. If you need to get out the old bucket and hose system and do it that way, it's way better than suffering the consequences of finding out that you've cross-contaminated your tanks and created a problem that wasn't necessary. So be careful about that. Again, I hope I've showed you something that has simplified the way that you might do water changes and made it easier on yourself, because like I said earlier in this last segment here, so the last thing we want to do sometimes is water changes. But if you set aside a couple of days a week and you have the system that I have in place here, I've never done a video showing how that system works. It does not have to be a particular brand. I don't want to go out there. There are several brands out there that make these same kinds of systems, and they all work the same way. Now, I'm not putting down Python, but I know that my Python systems have had problems with the valves breaking down and me having to get parts for them and switching them out and that sort of thing. And that is the most expensive one that I've ever purchased. I've found that the medium priced ones to medium to mid-high range are better systems for me. Now that doesn't mean that if you're using a Python and you absolutely love it, that I'm trying to tell you that my system's better than yours or whatever. That's not what I'm trying to say. What I am trying to say is whatever the system is, whatever you've purchased, use that system to make your life easier, to make water changes easier, to keep your fish healthy. Now I know there's people out there that skip water changes for weeks and weeks and months sometimes at a time. You are not doing yourself a favor. You may tell yourself that your fish are fine, but you're going to wake up sometime and find out that some of your fish are dropping off earlier in the lifespan that they're supposed to live. And this is the reason why, is because water quality and quality of food and every other aspect of keeping fish is so important, and water changes is probably the number one that I would tell you that is most important. Keeping your tanks clean. And I didn't show you this in the video because it wasn't time for me to do it, but getting in there once in a while, maybe every third or fourth water change, and wiping the walls of the tank down is important as well, because there is a buildup over time, and getting that stuff out of there is an extra way of keeping your tank a little bit more cleaner. So thank you for joining me today. Leave your comments down below. I will try to get back to you within 24 hours. Sometimes it gets by me. If you haven't heard from me, send me a second comment, and hopefully I will get to it very quickly. Like I said, typically within 24 hours. Also, give me a thumbs up on this video and subscribe. Subscriptions are up by 34% based on the data that I'm getting from YouTube, and so the channel's growing astronomically faster each time we do a video. So it's important to me that we keep doing this. Now, I'm not doing this to make a living. I've told you that before. This is a hobby for me. If you were to see what I do for a living, it has nothing to do with fish. It's something that some of you know and some of you don't know. So the bottom line is that I hope you will take the time to give me a thumbs up, give me a comment, and subscribe to the channel, and also share with your friends. Thank you for joining me today. I hope I made your life a little bit simpler by showing you how to set up a system that may work for you and may make life a little bit simpler. That's what it's all about. Keep fishing, man. Keep doing what you're doing. The hobby is so fun, and we are trying to help you make it easier, and I hope I have achieved that today. Thank you for joining me. We will see you on the next one. Until then, we are out of here.